Welcome, 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 everyone. We got people coming in here, 24 people. Good morning. Happy Thursday. Tom, would you mind? Yeah, you're going to be on call here to let people in?
Yep.
Cool. We'll just we'll give it a minute or two to see if others trickle in just for a minute. How's everybody doing today? Usually not usually, it's been months since we've been in person, but when we were in person, I could kind of like jump around and do crazy stuff and get the crowd riled up. You know, that's my gig. But I'll do a quick intro here. My name is Chris Cooley. I'm a local entrepreneur, business owner, and big time supporter of RocGrowth. I also have an alias, MC Cooley, for these types of events, right? So, like I said, I'm here to facilitate in a way, and also to tell you what some of the guidelines are. We have a totally unique and different format today, which is exciting. The format here is a slight blend of what we've done in the past, which is RocGrowth Coffee, which is a presenter style with 3-minute presenters, lightning rounds, and RocGrowth Candids, which is more of an interview style. So today we have a fusion of both of those things. And what that means is we're going to spend half an hour, and Richard Glazer is going to mediate a conversation with some of a younger demographic that happen to be living in Rochester. And the topic around that is, what would you like to see in Rochester in the future and as we progress as a community? And so we wanted to be able to bring in young people who are here, who are part of our community, and who have their own perspectives on what this community needs, what it means to them to be part of it. And so that'll be the first half hour. And then what we'll do is, throughout the course of the conversation, if anybody here listening and participating would like to chime in and has their own story about why they are either here in Rochester still or have moved to Rochester and what they'd like to see Rochester become or be, please send me a private message. You can, in the chat, just have the little drop down, go to Chris Cooley and send me a message. And what we can do is we can either call on you to ask the question or chime in with your story, or I can ask the question. So please note which you'd like to do. So that's a slightly different format than we've done in the past, but we love your feedback and input. And I will say that around this topic, there's something I've been thinking a lot about, which is retention. You know, we talk a lot in business about retention and how to keep your employees. Well, from a city standpoint, retention is also kind of important for a community. And so what we're talking about here is retaining youth, retaining talent, making sure that as a community, we're fulfilling the needs that each other has, right? And a big point of what we're all about in RocGrowth, and I think a lot of you know that if you've participated before. If you haven't, we do the Hollywood Squares style here. We ask that you please keep on mute unless we call on you. And we will, at the end of this, also do sort of what we call popcorn. So if anyone has any announcements or thoughts that pop up at the end, please, again, just send me a direct message and we'll address that. Today is about listening and it's about sharing. So be ready to listen to these amazing young people who have agreed to participate, and also be ready to share something. So with that, I will turn it over to my confidant, friend, colleague, Richard, and he can introduce you to the panelists today.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for attending. We don't take your support and involvement for granted. You know, our efforts are about community building. And what I see on my screen is a community delivered virtually. And I think we're going to get into the subject of the importance of community and collaboration and supporting one another throughout the remaining hour. So RocGrowth's mission is to empower the new Rochester. I would suggest at the end, as we're reflecting on the state of our community, we can use some revisions and some new energy and change, and we're already seeing the emergence of the new leadership in the form of the leadership in the Free the People Rock movement. We want to instigate and have instigated creative collisions. So if there's anyone, it's hard to do in this format, but I know within the panel, we've created some new relationships and potentially friendships in preparing for this, the 6 panelists, but that's all good. We all are neighbors and we live and share this community together. We also enjoy spotlighting our great emerging innovators and entrepreneurs. And I think that's the greatest asset we have in this community is our legacy, and also it hasn't withered on the vine of producing great innovators and change agents. And everything we do is informed by promoting greater equality of race, class, gender, and age. And I've rattled that off numerous times, but today we're underscoring our commitment to promoting greater equality of age. Ageism is an issue that doesn't often get attention, and it works both ways with old people and their prejudices towards young people and vice versa. And again, we share a community, and the sooner we collaborate and work together in harmony and listen to each other, the better we'll be. So I just, this is our 7th Zoom in the age of COVID, and I'd like to recognize and pause for a moment about the pain many in our community are feeling. Rochester, I would suggest deservedly so, has achieved national attention. And perhaps some people feel it's a blemish. I feel it's an opportunity for Rochester to rise and become a national role model, if not international. COVID has exacerbated the unacceptable condition many in our community face on a daily basis. We've become more divided, some would say. So let's reflect for a moment on how we can come together respectfully and listen and can heal our community and make it a better place. Let's reflect on how we can help Rochester achieve the great potential. So I just want to pause and try to feel the pain and reflect on how we can help and come together as a community for a few moments. Cool. It's a beautiful day in Rochester for those who are logging in remotely. And now I want to begin the formal part, the discussion among 6 amazing younger individuals. I think I'm more than twice the age of the oldest, so I can say young people. What I'm going to do is quickly recognize the 6 of the tiles you see on your screen and give a brief description, just very brief, an affiliation, and then we're going to dive in. And I know all of these individuals have the ability to converse and speak for themselves. I'm going to have Nick. We have Nick Brunert. I don't see you on my screen, but Nick is from the North Country, as many Rochesterians I know are. He's technically a transplant, and he arrived in Rochester to attend Roberts Wesleyan, which he now works at. He's also a manager at the wonderful downtown coffee shop Fuego, which we featured years ago when Tony Colon was one of our guests at RocGrowth Candids. Emmarae Stein, who is a senior at Nazareth. And, Emmarae has more recently interned at Evan Dawson's Connection. She's doing some work for an affiliate organization to the Chamber at the moment. And history major, communications major with a focus on journalism. We have Oliver Haynes. Oliver is a developer, an RIT grad, a great jazz trumpeter, and a developer at Measures for Justice, which is, again, a bit of a gem. It's a nonprofit well-funded by some world-renowned foundations that's doing incredible work in our community. It's staffed here, but people wouldn't know it. And they're here because of the talent available in our community. We have Maria Sykes, who is a graduate of NAS and Roberts Wesleyan, a licensed social worker working within the city and has unusual exposure to some of the challenges many of the residents face. And Ngozi Udo, another transplant, who moved up here from New York City, a graduate of Queens College, and does some work with the disadvantaged community within the city. And we have Belle Sherwood. Belle is a sophomore at U of R, drawn to the field of environmental studies. And I will full disclosure, because I am somewhat biased, we have 3 products of the Harley School. So that's just more accidental than anything else, I suppose. So why don't you, you guys, let's discuss your feelings about Rochester and why you've been attracted here and why you were willing to accept my invitation to participate. So why don't we just go in order? Nick, and since I listed you first, Nick, you want a moment?
Sure. Thanks for those introductions, Richard. Hey, everybody. Good morning. I fell in love with Rochester. I've been here since 2013 when I came for my freshman year at Roberts-Wesleyan College. I came from the North Country where they say even the cows are lonely. I came from a county that I think had about 20,000 people and 80,000 cows. Lewis County, if anybody's ever heard of it. If you haven't, that's okay. Probably nobody else has either. But I came to Roberts to study management and social entrepreneurship. And part of that program, I had the opportunity to be in an organization that focused on social entrepreneurship in the city of Rochester, identifying needs in our community and coming up with an entrepreneurial business approach to solve it. So from doing that, I had the opportunity to work all over Rochester with multiple different groups. And I just fell in love with how this community's innovative spirit is. And I've wanted to be a business developer. So I helped develop Fuego Coffee Roasters back in 2013. Fell in love with that experience, fell in love with this community. From there, I ended up moving to Guatemala in 2016 and launching the second Fuego Coffee Roasters. I don't know if everybody knows that, but there's a second Fuego in Guatemala that we collaborated, a Rochester team, and I was a student at Roberts. So when I graduated, I just decided this was home. I had friends here, I had a community here, and I felt like Rochester was a place where your ideas could be heard, and where I could continue to develop personally and professionally. Currently, I'm working on a certificate of graduate study in sustainable enterprise from the University of Vermont, because I really believe that this is a community that is in pain. It's in pain, but it has so many great, rich, and creative ideas. And we sometimes can linger on our mistakes here, but there's so much opportunity. And that's really what I want to be a part of in the next wave of emerging Rochester. So the last thing I'll quick add is I am working on another business development here in Rochester that's going to be opening this weekend. Matilda Coffee House and Kitchen is my next project, and it will be launching where the old Starry Nights Cafe location was down on University Ave. So I know during COVID we've lost so much, so I'm excited to be able to excite Rochester and ignite something that can get us excited. So, but I love it. Rochester's home. Rochester's home now. So.
So thank you. I love your enthusiasm. It's contagious. Emmarae, you're next, please.
Great. Hi all, I'm Emmarae. So I'm actually a Rochester native. I grew up over in the Cobbs Hill area. I've always been really invested in the arts community in Rochester. I have two very musical parents. I was involved in a lot of bands growing up, so I really grew up surrounded by, going to the art galleries around town, really being involved in the small business community in Rochester. So I feel very fortunate for that. About 2 years ago, I started getting involved in a local publication called Floated Alternative Culture magazine. And while I'm no longer involved with that anymore, that really showed me sort of the different musicians and the artists that are really making Rochester, what it is right now. And I really think we do have such a fantastic arts community. Just like Nick said, I really think that we're a city of entrepreneurs and change makers. I think that there's so much innovation here. And I think that the people who live here and who have been here for a long time really start to pick up on that. I think that it's not as maybe visible to newcomers in the city, but I really think that once you're here for a while, you realize like, oh my goodness, there are so many people here who are so excited about this city moving forward. And that just gets me just so absolutely thrilled. And one big thing for me is I think that what I've seen as someone who went to high school in Rochester, someone who is now going to college in Rochester, and who's thinking of going to graduate school in the area as well, and who's thinking of continuing to stay here for many, many years. I think a lot of people see Rochester as more of a jumping off point than a landing point. It's seen as, the point A, especially for students. It's seen as a place where you start off and then you leave to go to, bigger, greater opportunities. And I really want to start to be a part of reshaping that narrative, so people can think, yeah, I can be personally successful here. I can be professionally successful here. I can build a life here and have, phenomenal connections here and really build something to be proud of. Because I know that I've seen the heart of the small business community here. It is so strong. I've seen the heart of the arts community here. And there's just so much, there's such a great sense of welcoming and just such a fantastic community to really be a part of. So I'm just really excited to be a part of that next chapter of Rochester, and I really want to be a part of that rebranding to show the rest of the world that Rochester's got something great going on.
Cool. So Oliver Haynes.
Yes. Hello, everybody. So yeah, I've been.
Let me just say, that's the Nathaniel right there near Dinosaur Barbecue.
Yes. And
all right. Look at that. That says enough. The picture speaks 1,000 words.
Right. So yeah, I've been in Rochester for a long time at this point. Let's see. I went to sort of Mendon High School. I went to kindergarten here, 4th grade. And college. I went to RIT. I also went to MCC for 2 years. And otherwise, I've just lived here post-college. And I've had my first 2 jobs in the web development industry here. And as Richard said, I'm, or at least used to be, pretty involved in the music and the jazz scene here in Rochester, which is made even more special by the Eastman School of Music being here, and I know Tom appreciates that as well. And there's just a lot of amazing culture, as the others have talked about here in Rochester. Lots of opportunities, lots of sort of people wanting to be a part of the cultural moment. It's a city that is, in my opinion, not particularly large, but it is small enough where voices can be heard and people can rise to the top and sort of say something, speak their mind. And that makes Rochester unique. And so I feel like there's a lot of potential in this city. You have all these different colleges. You have, I think, a pretty diverse range of people, even age demographic wise. And I think in Rochester, people live in pockets. And I would like to see that addressed in some way. And so I think there's all this beauty in Rochester, but then we have these challenges, and that's what attracts me to this place. I want to see some of these challenges addressed in some way, shape, or form. And Rochester has been growing over the past decades. You know, I've seen new buildings go up, and so I'm kind of excited to continue to see where things go and how the city evolves. And I think that's why I'm here in Rochester right now in this moment.
Cool. You're certainly employable given your software development skills in many places. So thanks. Maria Sykes. Are you out there?
Hi, sorry, I forgot for a moment how to.
You had dog responsibilities, so I'm glad you were able to make it on time.
That too. So, oh my gosh, so many thoughts just even in those few minutes. I messaged Nick, but I am originally from Guatemala, born there and adopted as a baby to here in Rochester. And then I've grown up. I am one of the Harley School grads and then Naz and Roberts. So I would definitely say this is home, and I have had opportunities to leave, to visit Guatemala, to study abroad in Ireland. I did a service year in Denver, Colorado, but I always come home. And so kind of what everyone else has said is, I think growing up, I appreciated all the opportunities, the arts, the culture, the community. I've always had a giving heart. And now I'm kind of learning to listen to the organic voices that are in this community already, and finding my place in this community as not only a Rochester quote unquote native, but also as a woman of color and what that means personally and professionally.
Great. Thank you. And Gozi, where are you? I know you're about 2 blocks from me.
I'm around the corner. So, hi, I'm Ngozi Udo. So you said to talk about what we love about Rochester and then why we chose to say yes to this panel?
No, just the...
Or just this talk?
Yeah, why 4 or so years ago when you showed up from New York City, did you say, I'm gonna make a home here?
Oh, it's been 6 years, actually. Yeah. So I just wrote down some notes here, but I just wanted to say that that I echo much of what Emmarae and Nick and Oliver and also Maria said about just the progress and potential that Rochester has. But not only that, but there's so many opportunities to build on the establishments that are here, the small businesses, the nonprofit organizations, the many activist groups, and even things that may not be necessarily official. Like I think, Richard, you and I were talking the other day about the possibility of, someone just saying, you know what, the kids in my neighborhood, we live in a food desert and I know how to garden and I want to teach them how to garden, and so just like putting that out there, there's so many people, so many grants, but also just people within the community who would pitch in and say, okay, let's do this. And, just even living in a place where something like that, an idea, so wholesome and so community focused could not only be thought of, but then be like just acted upon and encouraged by the community. Like that's very unique to me. Growing up in New York City, I've lived in New York City since I was officially about 4 years old. Prior to that, I was born in Jamaica. And living in New York City, I really did enjoy much of the anonymity. But I think that was because I was still trying to figure out who I was and what I wanted to do. And so it felt nice to be able to just kind of hide. But after visiting here a few times during my second to last year of college and my last year, I really fell in love with the beauty of this community, but also like this sense of community that I'd never experienced before. Even just in visiting, like going to the public market and just walking around the neighborhoods and seeing the paintings and the art, and just the way that people talk about the city. Like, I'd never experienced so much pride that wasn't, I don't want to say superficial, but that was really attached to something that you can see, and hear and look at and touch. And so I was really intrigued by that. And so when I moved here, I was really excited to start a career in public health, and that's what I did. And we'll talk about that later, but I just want to, echo what I believe Nick said when he said, like, I'm here to stay. Like, people ask me all the time, like, so you're from New York City and you've been here for a while, like, what's next for you? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I'm fortunate enough to have moved, my first place after leaving college, to find this place to be the place that I want to stay. Like, I'm so lucky. No matter where I go, if I go to travel, if maybe I go on a little, project or something, like, this is home to me. And I'm excited and honored, so honored to be a part of this community and to hopefully participate in something or create something that really, like, moves the city forward. So just even being a part of this panel, like, I'm just like, who, me? Like, you want to hear what I have to say, but yeah, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just remember about 15, 20 years ago when the negativity around this, this community started seeping in, and it was just, this is such an antidote to that era. So thank you. Belle, I must say, you are the youngest. That's not why you're last. I'm sorry. Just the luck of the draw. So Belle Sherwood.
Hi everyone. Good morning. Can you hear me okay? I think my internet. Can you guys hear me okay? I want to take that as a no.
Yeah, I can hear you.
You're good.
Yes, you're
All
fine.
right. This is the University of Rochester internet, everybody. Is that currently?
Do you hear me?
Okay. I'm sorry. Everyone is frozen on my screen, but sorry about that. Good morning. Hi, like Richard said, I'm Belle.
Uh-oh, you're frozen.
Okay.
I don't hear you, Belle. Chris, do you hear me?
Yeah, Richard, I can hear you. You may have to make a pivot. Belle's.
Oh, that's all right. We can open up when Belle, if you keep trying to talk and interrupt us if we continue in our conversation. But
Hi, can you hear? Is it better now?
I hear you. Yes. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Yes, we can hear you.
It's very choppy, Richard. You may want to just.
Okay.
We have you now, Belle.
All right. Let's.
Okay. Can you hear me all right?
Yes. Try. Put together. Go for it. No. Oh, well, U of R, I know that COVID has been very expensive for them. Maybe they've done something with their.
Hi, good morning. I hope you all can hear me okay.
Yes, we can hear you now. Belle, if you you may want to turn off your video, and that'll give you more bandwidth for your audio. And she's lost. I'll private message her.
Okay. So ultimately, one of the coolest things, I'll never forget having a conversation with some of the establishment, individuals at the Country Club of Rochester 7 years ago. And I took out my phone and I showed several individuals around town with the Rochester City logo tattooed on their body. And it was incomprehensible to them. Do any of you have a Rochester City tattoo or know of friends? It might sound like an odd question, but what I'm hearing is a recognition of pride around this community. Does anyone have or anyone in the audience have a Rochester City tattoo? I'm giving Belle some time. Yeah.
I have lots of friends who have one or have the lilac, tattooed on them for sure. I think that's fairly common, which I've always thought is really wonderful.
Yeah, I think people need to understand. There's no shortage of T-shirts and other paraphernalia with the city logo on it. So Oliver, I want to refer back to something you said, because it ties into the next issue that I wanted to raise is, how can we all contribute to making Rochester the world you want to see? And many of us perhaps feel similarly. You say that you feel people live in pockets. Anyone have more thoughts and want to discuss your sense of what pockets are? What do you mean?
Sure. Well, I do not have statistics in front of me for anything that I'm about to say. So just to put that out there, because I do think statistics are very important in actually highlighting the actual truths when having complicated discussions such as this. However, the feeling for me, and I've been here for over a decade, well over a decade now, and just always have had this feeling of, and this again is not entirely the case across the board, but the people of color live inside of city limits and the white people live in all of the surrounding suburbs. And so there's just this inherent sense of segregation that has always bothered me. I don't think that any one person is to blame, for that. I think it's just a consequence of history on some level, a consequence of how the city has developed over the decades. And I think that realities like that hinder the development of culture. I think that culture, so just a quick diversion, I think that a big part of what attracts a person to a location is we all are trying to make some sort of sense, meaning of our lives, and I think that's a huge driver of what we each choose to do, both, in every sense, occupationally, but also just being in a community, being in a space that feels interesting, that has lots of different things going on, and arts, and so I think the healthier, the more vibrant that is, the more people come together, people want to spend time together, try new things, and I think that sort of this implicit segregation of peoples it hinders that even further. I want to see you do see more developments, right, coming into downtown. I mean, I'm in one of those right now, but I will say it's also controversial. The Nathaniel, a lot of people, I've gotten flack from my own friends for living here because it's an effort of gentrification, right? And so it's going to push people out that are in lower income. So this is a very complicated issue. So on one hand, let's say we have these new housing developments coming downtown, which may attract different people from different places and put them into the same space. And that's great on one level. On the other level, the way that we go about doing it in this country is through gentrification, which does have impacts on people in lower income. So that's not a great side effect either. I personally don't have any particularly good answers. I'm just saying what I feel and what I see. I'm a simple developer, and I do not have the any solutions. That's sort of where I'm at.
Well said. Thank you. Anyone else have any thoughts in response?
Jumping in the deep end.
Oh, that's the third rail I view personally in our community. Yeah. So anyway, Ngozi?
Yeah, so I don't have necessarily a response, but I would like to add to what Oliver said. I agree. You know, when you first, Oliver, mentioned people living in what did you say? What did he say? Pockets?
Yes.
Yeah. So that made me think of silos in a sense. So, you know, I talked a little bit about when I first moved here and how excited I was, because even though, you know, there was a bit of ambivalence that I had with New York City, you know, it was awesome to be able to be anonymous, but I also wanted to find a sense of community. And I felt like when I visited here, this was a place that had that city feel to it, but also, you know, I knew that if I were to live here, I would get a sense of like, okay, this is my community. You know, I could, you know, find out things about myself. Maybe I'm into art. Maybe I'll join one of those people that gets a Rochester tattoo, you know? But the important thing, the thing that I think will add to what you said, Oliver, was that when I first moved here, when I first visited here and then subsequently moved here, it was with my white friends, right? And I lived in the neighborhood of the arts. And it wasn't until I started to say, a few years later, when I was around more Black people socially, and I would say that, and I would get like what? And so, you know, again, I'm from New York City, right? Which means that we could spot a tourist like that. And the worst thing that you can be is someone in New York City who like pronounces a street wrong or calls something like a name that is, you know, that's not the original name. So I didn't know what the answers were, but I knew like, okay, I won't say that anymore, because that's, you know, there's something going on there with that title. And so I lived for pretty much all of my 6 years here. I lived in 14607 East Avenue, Beacon Street off of Atlantic. And then for a short time, I lived in 14620, which was Erie Harbor, right? So I'll just talk just really briefly about my time in along East Avenue, or was it Neighborhood of the Arts? So I was like, wow, like, look at all of these sculptures. Oh my gosh. And I knew I was being a tourist, but I also knew that none of my friends could see me. So I would sit in those, in that art, the art bench thing, and like take a picture of me with this horse and But, you know, I naively, I guess, thought that that was Rochester. You know, I'm like, look, you know, it's so cultured, there's museums and, you know, and it wasn't until I started, and I worked at Starbucks. So that's where I worked during college. And then that's where I worked for a year while I tried to find a job here my first year. And the Starbucks I worked was on Monroe and Oxford. So again, still in the same kind of area. You know, Monroe was a little bit more, you know, like, you know, tattoos and everything. Like, okay, all right. But it wasn't until I started my work in nonprofit and public health and maternal and child health, and started to visit. Even before that, though, when I was looking for jobs and I didn't have a car yet because I didn't know how to drive, and I took the bus. I remember taking the bus. I have never seen such a. It was the saddest thing that I've ever seen. Everyone on that bus, everyone on every bus that I took they were just so sad and just seemed so like, I want to find the right words, because I don't want to sound, you know, I don't want to say the wrong thing and be misinterpreted, but there was just like this blanket of hopelessness in the people waiting for the bus and the people on the bus. And I stood out because, you know, I had my interview clothes on, and I was just like, wait, where'd you guys come from? What's going on? You know, and then when I started, so that was my first clue that things were separate. And not to say that that's, you know, how all the people that are, huh? I mean, that's the point.
Refreshing New York perspective, because in New York, people will take the place of all.
Oh, right. Yeah. So in New York, and also Richard, I know as a facilitator, you know, jump in, you know, but in the, you know, New York City, it's like the bus. Yeah, you're going to get some people who are like really experiencing hard times, but everyone's on the bus. That's what, you know, that's what we do. But when I went on the bus here, this was back in 2015. I searched for someone with some sort of, you know, brightness in their eyes, some sort of, you know, sense of like presence, and everyone was just sad, you know. And I was like, huh. And I even felt uncomfortable looking the way that I looked, because, you know, I felt like, and I was probably projecting this, but I felt like people were like, what are you doing here? Like, what, you know, why are you here? You know, it felt weird. But anyway, so that was my first clue. But again, I didn't drive, so I didn't know. And once I got my job.
Great relationship. So we have limited time.
Okay. Let me get to the point though. There's a point, I promise. Once I started my job, and I would go out and like hand out bus passes and things, like actually go to people's homes. That's when I got to see the other side of the city. And that was that day was the biggest letdown of this idea that I had of this city being, you know, I've never experienced poverty, I guess, in that way, like just the broken down homes, and these are families that I've met with, that I have groups with, that I built relationships with, and I didn't understand when they were talking about issues with their landlords and issues. It was just like, how are people living this way? Why are people living this way just across, you know, a few streets down? You know, so, and then living in Erie Harbor, I got flack from people who knew I wasn't from here, who knew I didn't know the history, but they were like, listen, prior to this building being here, this was a place where people living in low income, living with low income lived. And they, you know, they told me that they shut it, they tore it down. And I was just like, I didn't know, like, wait, am I a part of gentrification? You know, like, oh, you know, so there's this ickiness no matter, you know, what side you're on, even if you're a Black person or a person of color who maybe you're from here, maybe you were born with less and you were able to, you know, come up and you know, and live in a better or a, you know, a place of your choice, you can still be a part of this system of separation. And the more I see like really deliberate segregation of the city, like driving from where I live, you know, along South Union, and then going to Hudson.
Lizzie, I'm looking at the time, so seriously, I heard your point, and we'll continue. And
Thank you, Richard.
Our next event.
Thank you, Richard.
It's our next Zoom, but I wanted to give the audience an opportunity. We've had almost 70 people show up, and again, thank you, everyone. Chris, would you like to?
Yeah, Richard, thanks. Someone sent me a really great question, and I think this kind of brings things full circle to kind of end on an actionable note. You know, that's one of the things that you and I talk about often, Richard, is like, how do we take action on some of these things? And so, you know, the challenges of, like Emmarae mentioned about, you know, why this is a jump off point for college students, or it's seen that way. The pockets, you know, that Oliver and Ngozi are talking about, the challenges of sort of like bridging the gap. So someone sent me a message, and it's great. And I would really like to hear from all the panelists, if maybe you could take just a couple minutes, and we could, Richard, I don't know if you can moderate this, or we can just call on somebody and go in a row. But the question is, what do you want to see from Gen X or older generations in the next year or so to address some of these challenges that Rochester faces, or just in general? And I think that's a great question to even have some of the other people who are listening here think about, what the younger generation would like from us to be able to take action. So thought that was a great question.
Chris, you're showing your young age. How about the baby boomers too?
Anybody older than me? I'm 36.
The boomers.
So maybe we could kick that off. And I mean, Nick, is Nick still here? Maybe we could go like Nick and just kind of cascade down from there.
Sure. Yeah, I'm still here. That's a great question. Thank you to whoever asked it. I guess, you know, when I came to Rochester and I started getting excited about who we were, it seems like a lot of people who have been here for a long time, you know, past that, you know, somebody earlier mentioned, you know, about 15 years ago was when our city really started reflecting on some negative things. We always hear from you what Rochester was, right? And this is a phenomenal historical town, and we wish that you could see what it was. And it's just not what it used to be. But we love it now. And frankly, you know, a lot of things that have come to light in the last couple of weeks, I don't think I would have liked it back then. I would have definitely enjoyed, you know, I wished for those other jobs, and, you know, I wouldn't have ever wished for the decline of our industries, but our city has had some issues that have come to light recently. And I think it's just important that as you're talking to a college student, or as you're talking to a young professional who's emerging in the city, we love it now. We came now. We want to see what it's going to look like. We want our voices heard, and we want a vision for what our community could be. But right now it seems like there's a divide between kind of wanting Rochester back to where it was, which we don't know how it was, and what it could be in the future. So, you know, I think that would be my answer is, you know, let us dream, let us be heard, and help steer us in the direction to what a vision of Rochester could be in the future.
Dude, I got goosebumps. Thank you.
Sounds like a Sean.
Yeah. I also saw Emmarae kind of nodding her head. Emmarae, do you have some other thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that was like, I mean, goosebumps, same. That was like incredibly, I mean, I echo all of those sentiments. That's something I've thought about a lot. You know, this idea that Rochester is very much a city that's stuck on looking on our past accomplishments rather than looking forward to what the future holds for us. But also going on sort of the idea of pockets, which Oliver and Ngozi discussed a little bit. If you look at the perspective of how Greater Rochester as a whole views the city, there's just such a disconnect. And you can see this by hearing, you know, the claims that people from the suburbs are making about the protests without even being there. You can see this from the fact that so many people don't support or even want to discuss the idea of a Monroe County school system. I think you can see this from the fact that throughout, you know, all my time growing up, people have said, aren't you scared of going downtown? Like, what does that mean to be scared of the city that you live in? You know, what are the implicit biases that you're holding to say something like that? I think there's a lack of understanding, and in some parts, really a lack of willingness to understand that and really learn that's holding the city back. I think there's a lack of willingness, or maybe a lack of understanding how really to combat one's implicit biases. And I think that until we move forward, and until people in the suburbs and Greater Rochester as a whole and the older generations really start to actively care about the city, I'm not sure that we can move forward. We have to all come together and really try to combat these biases and work together, I think. So I think that's something that I want to see, you know, in the future.
That's awesome. I have a message for everybody in line with that, which is go downtown. If you live in the burg, go downtown. It's not scary. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's vibrant, and like participate, right? If I could real quick, thank you for that. Just flip the mic over to Maria for a second. Maria, are you still?
Well, I love that both of you kind of are hinting around like it's okay to be afraid, but also don't let it stop you. I grew up in the suburbs. I will say very openly, I grew up in a life of privilege, and I was very, very comfortable with that, and I still am. I very much work in the city, and when I bought a house, I knew I wanted to be in the suburb, and I am working on my shame around that, because I knew I wanted to come home to something safe. And in my head, all my life, the city has been unsafe. But now working, I am that classic social worker that I will go into I'm a family therapist under Monroe Preventative Services. So all of my referrals for families come from Child Protective Services and probation and the Family Access and Connection team here in Monroe County. We also work in other counties, but primarily in Monroe. And I am that classic social worker that I go into the exact same situations that police officers get called to, but I just have a vanilla folder between me and what is going on with that family. So and I'm tiny. I know you can't tell from a video, but I'm all of 4'8" and I'm the size of a child. So yes, it can be scary, but at most, you just kind of have empathy for what's going on because it could happen to any one of us, any one of our families. There's so much more that goes on between, closed doors and everything. And if we just kind of reach out and acknowledge that we are all human, we can make way greater connections than letting our fear stop us.
Thank you. Awesome. Do we hear from Oliver?
Yes. So I think it's challenging to answer questions like the one posed. What did he say? What can older people do
in the next year or so? Yeah, to support.
In order for me to adequately answer that question, I feel I need statistics in front of me, because even just looking in my own life, I do know of a number of people across the spectrum of age who are very supportive of all of the protests. For instance, out of my window, I could see every protest happening every night passing my street, and I get a snapshot of the demographic of people coming out to be a part of these things. And the thing that's beautiful to me is that I am almost certain that there's a lot of people actually coming from the suburbs and all of the different surrounding suburbs to be a part of this movement. Every skin tone, the movement is becoming incredibly diverse, and I couldn't be happier about that. I think that that's the only way that we can actually achieve progress in this country. Is we need to speak bravely, we need to speak truthfully, and out of a place of wanting to get better as a people. And that could include some hard truths that maybe some people don't want to hear. But the point is not to, I think, lambast someone with, to make them feel a certain way. The point is to communicate a truth, a certain reality. And what I see are lots of different people coming to the table. And I want to continue to see that trend. So to whatever extent there are people that are older that are choosing to be a part of this movement, please continue to do that. And to everyone else, please continue to do that. That's really it. Just the question in my mind is, with the speed at which, and I can feel myself, my brain is like starting to enter the upper atmosphere of like leaving Rochester and just looking at all the problems we're dealing with as a country. And we're talking about Rochester. So I am not going to let myself do that. It's too easy for me to do that. I will leave my point.
I have this. Thank you, Oliver. It's great, man. I will say that I got a private message that said that this person could be here for 4 hours. So maybe we'll turn this into a series of some kind. Not to like, make any promises or anything, but something to talk more about.
More points.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that would be remarkable. I would love to for that to be the case, because the reality is we are dealing with very challenging subject matter, and no matter how capable any one of us are, we cannot possibly even come close to addressing the truth in this time frame. So there's that. Would love to see more of this, to be able to develop on these ideas. And also, I can't remember my also points, so please continue.
Well, I'm going to skip over. If you think about it, shoot it out in the chat. Richard, do you have somebody that you want to highlight or you want to chime in here?
Yeah, I guess in a virtual creative collision, I was on a call, Rochester Open Coffee Club, led by Josh Krager, who's on this call. Thank you for being the impresario behind those Wednesday morning events. So if anyone's interested in it, Josh, quick shout out. How do you get connected with ROC, R-O-C-C? Are you there?
Yes, it's another Zoom call. I'll put a link in the chat so everybody can connect in. 7:30 on Wednesday mornings. Thank you, Richard.
And then I met Emily Bowman yesterday, who's an entrepreneur, and we all know in the world of entrepreneurship, it's a contact sport that involves a community. And Emily's out of Buffalo. Emily, just could you tell us about, I'll let you disclose the name of your venture.
Hi, I'm Emily. I own Braid Babes. This is Tori, our manager and basically business partner at this point. We've been in Buffalo almost 2 years now, and we just expanded to Rochester last month. Actually, we have 4 braiders in Rochester that live there and take appointments there. We're actually mobile, so if you book with us on our website, braidbabes.com, we actually come to your house. We create beautiful braids. We'll braid if you have a party. We'll braid everyone at the party. And we also put in hair shimmers. They're like these sparkles in your hair. We're so cute. I can't. And we have a free event tomorrow that you can come to. I will post the link in there. It's a 2-hour shimmer bar where you'll get 10 shimmers for free. They last months, so even though it's just 10, it is worth it. They're super cute. So I will throw that up in the chat.
Thank you. So this was a fusion, youth culture, and then our last event was about Rochester plus Buffalo equals success. And I do know, I explored with Emily, we all know there are ethnic differences around hair, and you're very sensitive about accommodating and serving all communities. So thank you. We have an amazing team. I'm going to let Chris close it out, but I want Chris Cooley and Tom Myers and Andrew Brady and Ms. Adriana Mascura have been kicking butt during the stage of COVID, and having to re-engineer our approach. We could use some more support, particularly on the marketing, social media, everyone hears that type of request from baby boomers, but ultimately we just, it's not complicated. If someone wants to help out, there's room in the committee. We're also just, if anyone wants to apply, support us, email info@RocGrowth.com. So yesterday was a gorgeous day, and I do live downtown, and I welcome anyone. If you want a walking tour, the number of construction projects that are going on is remarkable. They're rebuilding the inner loop fill into a diverse neighborhood with plenty of affordable housing. I'm not talking about, although it sits alongside a former project that is being renovated, and it does have, subsidized housing. So what's going on, it's like the phoenix emerging from the ashes. I encourage you to walk around. I'd personally love to give you a tour. I live right in town. And yesterday I went to MLK Park, Martin Luther King, location for many of the demonstrations. And Sean Dunwoody had painted the well all black, and it has given people a canvas to express themselves. And I saw a magnificent poem that just really moved me, and I want to share with you, particularly at this moment. And I do encourage people, vote, participate in the census. Let's realize a true democracy in our country and have everyone's voices be heard. In that vein, I want to read it to you. The time is now for radical change, for the iron has never been hotter. It will require our urgency, yet at times our patience. It will require our anger, yet at times a heart to reconcile. And if that doesn't state the tension that exists right now, there's a lot of anger, a lot of desire for really concrete change, but then we need to balance that out with the reconciliation. So we're in a stew right now, and let's cook up a great stew. And on that note, Chris, please take it off.
Richard, I have to do one thing. So this is the annoying uncle part, right? Like where I'm like freeze and take a photo. So if you can turn your video on before you go, we're going to take a screen capture. Just do like a smile, because if I don't ask this, then people get caught with like fingers up their noses and like texting and stuff like that. So like just real quick, I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, just hold it, like give me a peace sign or something like that. Smile. I'm going to flip through each panel. And so ready, 1, 2, 3. Okay, there's one. Hold on. There's one more. Okay, 1, 2, 3. All right. Very good. Thank you for entertaining that. We'll be sending out an email next session that we do. Thank you so much for all the presenters. I do want to give Ngozi, do you want to answer the question one time? If people have to leave, that's totally cool. I know we're pressing up against time, but I want to be very respectful. Ngozi asked me if she could answer the question about what the next generation can do. So if you have to go, that's cool. If you want to stick around and listen for just a few more minutes, that's fine too. I will be here to listen to Ngozi for sure. So Ngozi, go ahead. I think you're on mute though.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Chris. So I wanted to speak to that last question and touch on something really powerful that Nick said about, you know, us loving the new Rochester and wanting to move forward, and talking about, you know, this sentiment that he hears a lot, which is, I wish you could have seen it before, right? And so while I understand very much, and I feel like people are saying goosebumps, I feel, you know, what he was about that you know, desire to move forward, build also that I believe, in my humble opinion, that we also need to take, right? So when we're looking at and listening to the people who are saying, gosh, I wish you could have been here, I wish you could have seen it, usually the people who are saying that are older Black people who've lived here their whole lives, right? Or old parents have lived here their whole lives. And those stories that they're talking about, the setup of the city that they're talking about, you know, there's a lot of stories and so much history that has not been told about Black Rochester, about downtown Rochester in a real, in a full and accurate way. And so when you talk about the Kodak and Clarissa Street, there was recently a documentary, I believe it was made, it was created by some young people who received a grant to just talk about, you know, try to find out more about the history of Clarissa Street and, you know, what that was like back in the day, right? And so we watched it for work, and one of my colleagues said, you know, while this documentary is awesome, there's so much that's missing from it, right? Because her family came to Clarissa Street and were one of the founding families, you know, who got to see this area of successful Black people, you know, enjoying that space. And so what I want to say is that you know, even when we think about Black Wall Street, I got the opportunity through work to visit Tulsa, Oklahoma. I never knew about Black Wall Street, and I went to that site. And even though it was new now, and it was still Black businesses, and you know, you could feel the energy, you could feel the history, all of the stories, all of the suffering, all of the pain, recently I also saw that there are Black people in this country who don't know about Black Wall Street, right? And so the reason why I'm saying that is we can both want to move forward and enjoy Rochester as it is, but it's really important to make sure that we hear and see and know the history of this city, especially downtown. And there's an African proverb, if you will, called Sankofa, and this is the symbol for it. And that means essentially, you can't move forward unless you know where you've come from. And so we can't say, as people who love the city, we're just going to focus on moving forward if we don't know where we came from. And so when we ask what can older people do, like Oliver so beautifully mentioned, older people can continue, because it's not like they're not doing it, continue to join the fight, continue to protest. There are people with different levels of physical ability who are protesting, who are sitting in, who are demonstrating. You know, older people who you can tell, boy, they could probably use a nap. They could probably use some water. They're probably really hot, but they are thugging it out. They're out there, you know? And so it's just so beautiful to see the diversity of people of different ages who are out here fighting. But again, before we can move forward in a way that's gonna really be sustainable and really echo and honor the history and the fight that this community started off with, we gotta know it. Last thing I'll say is that we can also, older people can also continue to allow young people to lead and join them. There's a wonderful organization called Free the People, FTP, on Instagram, who has been leading the charge on occupying City Hall and getting justice for Daniel Prude. Young people, these organizations are extremely strategic, extremely good at mobilizing. And so we need to look at what is happening and join that. Don't reinvent the wheel. Don't go off into your own silo and say, okay, you know, we're white people or we're young Black people and we're going to go over here. No, see what's going on and join. Thank you.
That's so great. And I actually posted at the importance of history and knowing history, right? I just posted a link in the chat. It's a documentary that was done by, I believe it was Independent Lens or PBS, about the 1964 uprising in this city. And it talks about the racial history of Rochester in 55 minutes. And if you haven't watched it, spend the time, take the hour, sit down with your family and watch this documentary. It was done incredibly well, and it is the truth behind Kodak and all of this sort of entrepreneurial economic impacts that were strategically designed to eliminate a certain group of people and certain groups of people from progress. And so I just want to say thank you to everyone.
Just 1 second.
Yes.
I do want to mention to everyone, this is being video recorded, as we said earlier, and the video will be made available later in the week. And along with that, all the comments will be also, go to the RocGrowth.com, the website, you'll see it there when it's posted, and all the comments that are not private. We do not post private comments. All the public comments will be on the website, so you can see all the links and everything else right there.
Thanks again, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Be great, and we will catch up with you again soon.